As part of my evaluation task and the questions I had to answer, one of them asked me to compare the differences between my preliminary task and my final construction piece to see how much I had learnt during my research leading up to the construction phase of my coursework. In my preliminary task, I was asked to create a new magazine for a school or college which would have the target audience of students. To create this, I used Photoshop as it was recommended to me by my teachers and peers. It was the first time I had ever even approached an editing application to use, so it was very daunting to me as I didn't know what a lot of the tools did. At this stage of my preliminary task, I didn't know how to edit or crop the image I inserted, so I made sure my model was central and used the background of the image as my cover background. I used one font throughout my front cover and contents page and kept the colour scheme very plain, sticking to blues and blacks, which looking back at it now makes my magazine look very boring. During this task I had a very basic idea of the conventions I needed to insert to attract a specific target audience, which overall meant my preliminary task lacked vital things. My main image was very large, and although it stood out in some way, the background drew attention away from my model. This is different from the typical convention of a magazine, where it has a very large central image with a plain background to ensure no attention is drawn away from it, overall attracting a specific audience. I used very little colour throughout this task, sticking to white backgrounds and black and blue fonts. This is very different to the pop genre, which has bright, bold fonts to attract their target audience. The lack of colour makes it appear very boring and not appealing at all. In my construction stage of my coursework, it was one of my favourite parts as I finally got to create what I had been prepping for so long. I had planned my layout, costume ideas, masthead and colours previously, so it was a lot easier to get going when creating this, rather than when creating my preliminary task. I had learnt so much about editing and the conventions of a magazine. I knew more clearly what I had to add and how to do it to make my magazine as effective as possible. I firstly inserted the main image of my model Ben, which I edited by increasing the vibrance, saturation and brightness so it better fit the conventions of the pop genre. I cropped out the background so that I could make it white so it didn't draw any attention away from my main image. My fonts were bright colours that would appeal to both genders of my target audience, and I tried to vary the font type I used throughout my magazine so that it wasn't so stagnant. My main image matched with my main cover line, unlike in my preliminary task, to help attract and appeal to my target audience. I added all the conventions that were required to help create the most effective and appealing magazine, such as cover lines, bold colours, a barcode, a large main image and a large, bright, standout masthead.